Hi everyone, it's Nicola from Morecambe Bay Wills, and I wanted to talk to you this week on Top Tips about property. So talking a little bit about the way that different property ownership can affect your will, and then can also potentially have an impact on whether or not what you own eventually gets to who you would want it to. So we'll start to talk a little bit about the way that property is owned. So especially if you're a joint owner. So if you are a joint owner of a property, you can either own the property as what's called a joint tenant, or you can own it as tenants in common. And sometimes when you buy a house, they will ask you that question and you really don't understand what it means. And so for most people, they would just plump for something as simple as joint tenants because they don't really understand the difference. So in the olden days, if there is such a thing, we used to own property much more as joint tenants because that gave the security that if one person dies, the other one would automatically get that property. So if you think about it, we have a property which is one whole, and that property owned as joint tenants is actually owned by both owners equally, but they both own 100% of it. Sounds a bit strange from a maths perspective, but that's how the law works. And what we're saying is that if one person is no longer there, then the property just becomes the property of the other automatically. It does not matter what your will says. You could say, I'm giving my half to the kids, and the reality is that can't happen because it will pass under the law of survivorship. So for some people, you think that that's actually quite a good thing, and it gives some protection, particularly for people who aren't married, because at least they have that protection of, whilst the law doesn't look after them very well if you're not married, and your partner dies without a will, at least you've got that protection. So that's a good thing. The other way of owning property is as tenants in common. And what that means is that that whole is split into two, and it can be 50-50, it can be 1-99, it can be 80-20. In most cases, it's equal shares. And this is your half, this is your partner's half, and you do what you want with it in your will. So why would you want that? So if you leave your property eventually to, you want it eventually to go to your children, but you leave it to your partner or your spouse, what happens if once you're no longer here, your spouse or your partner remarries? Well, the reality is that their will, which originally said, I'm going to give everything to the children, is revoked automatically on marriage. And what that then means is that their new spouse is potentially going to get the whole house. If something happens to your partner, then their new partner would get everything, and your kids could eventually just lose out. We call that accidental disinheritance. You didn't intend for it to happen, but accidentally that's what's happened. And it is way more common than you would realize. So by having your house owned as tenants in common, what you do is you leave your share of the property into something we call a property trust. And what that does is it says, I'm going to secure my half of the property and I'm going to leave it in trust for my children. And I'm going to leave my other half the right to live there for the rest of their life or for a specific period of time, whatever you decide. And then when you die, your half is secure. And if your wife or husband or partner does remarry, then only their half can be taken into consideration if they died, or if they had a new partner, or even if they went bankrupt, for example. Your half is always safe for your children, and when the trust ends, your half will go to your children. So it's something really to think about, and it's a simple and effective way. We do 80% of our couples that we do wills for will take a property trust. It's a simple, very easy way to secure your half of the property against accidental disinheritance. Oh, and one added benefit is that if your half is in trust and your partner, spouse, needs care in the future, your half that sits in trust can't be taken into consideration for their care fees because they don't own that half, the trust owns that half. So if you want a conversation about how to protect your house, most people, their main asset, by putting it into a simple property trust, which doesn't cost the earth to include in your will, give us a call, we're on 01524 571 032, and we'll also do a free consultation, 30-minute consultation, where you can have a conversation about what that actually means to you and how we can help you. Thank you.